You open the tab to work and somehow end up looking at a weather app you do not even need. That is how this starts, not with failure, with a tiny negotiation. One more check, one more glance, one more little innocent detour, like the day is a coat rack and every thought wants to hang something on it. And then you sit there acting surprised that deep work has not arrived, as if it is a guest who got lost in traffic. It did not get lost, your desk is making faces at it. Flow is not some rare bird you summon with incense and a clean notebook. It is what happens when the room, the phone, the tab bar, the open messages, the half-finished errand, the mental note about groceries, the thing you forgot to answer yesterday all stop waving their hands. That is the whole problem. You did not fail to invite flow. You kept building a tiny airport around your attention. Csikszentmihalyi and Lefebvre, in a study from the University of Chicago, beeped 78 workers at random all week and found that flow showed up when the task pushed just past easy, and it showed up more at work than at play. Which is annoying, honestly. The romance of flow wants a nice little candlelit scene, but the data says it tends to appear when the task has enough bite to hold you, and not so much bite that it chews your hand off. Right there, that narrow edge, not exotic, just correctly irritating. And that fits the part nobody wants to hear. You do not arrange flow the way you arrange a dinner reservation. You set conditions. You remove the chair that says, in its own silent, bureaucratic way, maybe check something else first. A blank document is not the enemy. A blank document plus 6 tabs and a buzzing phone, and the invisible urge to tidy the desktop is a small disaster wearing business casual. You know the moment. You're in the first 10 seconds of a task and already mentally wandering around the apartment, looking for something easier to be. Maybe you even say the thing out loud, softly, to nobody. I should just answer this first. There it is, the little side door. And once you open it, the whole room starts acting like a hallway. A 3-second interruption in research by Altman and Trafton at Michigan State University doubled people's errors. 4 seconds tripled them. Not minutes, seconds. That ping did not cost you a glance. It cost you the thread. That is such a rude finding because it removes all drama. No epic collapse, no grand moral weakness. Just a tiny interruption. The sort of thing that feels too small to matter. And suddenly your brain is back there with a spoon in its hand, trying to remember where it left the soup. The modern mind is very noble right up until it is asked to return to a sentence. And this is why the calendar is such a liar about the whole thing. It loves pretending attention is an appointment. 9 to 10, focus. 10 to 10:07, maybe a little focus if the universe cooperates. No. Flow is not a meeting. It is more like a cat that only settles once the hallway stops sounding like a dropped tray factory. I tried this last week, the dumb little version of it, and spent the first hour doing the respectable-looking dance of opening notes, closing notes, reopening notes, checking one message, then deciding I was being very disciplined by not checking the other message. A real champion of the craft. Eventually, I removed the second screen and, almost offensively, the work began to feel less like pushing a cart uphill through wet sand. That is the part people hate because it sounds too simple to be profitable. The body knows before the story does. In research from Karolinska Institutet, De Manzano and Ulan found that pianists in flow showed it in the body. Deeper breathing, the smile muscle live, the heart shifting. Not a mood you fake by tilting your eyebrows into a more ambitious shape. It arrives or it does not. That is useful for exactly one reason. It means the glossy performance of being focused is not the same thing as being in it. You can sit there with the correct posture, the correct playlist, the correct expensive bottle of water, and still be completely absent. Or you can be in a plain room with terrible lighting and suddenly the next 20 minutes happen without asking permission. The body is not impressed by your branding, which means all the little rituals people build around getting into flow can become a kind of decorative fence. Nice fence, very sincere fence, still a fence. A special candle does not rescue a scattered environment. A special candle is just a candle with confidence issues. And of course, the interruption is never only the interruption, it is the aftertaste. The message you checked for 3 seconds is now following you around like a man with a clipboard. You're back at the document, but not really. Part of you is still standing in the kitchen of your attention, wondering if the reply was enough, if the tone was fine, if you should send a second message, if the receipt was weird, if that one line sounded colder than intended. Congratulations, your project now has a ghost. The cost shows up in very ordinary places. You reread the same paragraph 3 times, and still do not know what it says. You make a tiny mistake in a file name, and then spend 12 minutes feeling absurdly busy while fixing the mistake. You leave the work harder than it was because the interruption did not just steal time. It dirtied the context. Once context is dirty, Flow becomes shy, not impossible, just shy. It is not offended, it is not above you. It simply does not enjoy walking into a room where every object has a label on it and half of them are blinking. This is the part where the advice video usually starts pretending it has uncovered ancient wisdom. Protect your environment, guard your attention, be intentional. Yes, obviously, we all love a sentence that sounds expensive, but the actual mechanic is almost embarrassingly plain. Make fewer things available to your attention at the moment you want it to go deep. That is it. Close the side doors before you start acting mystified by the draft. And no, you do not need to build a monk cell in your apartment. You need to stop leaving little traps all over the table. Put the phone in another room if you can. If you cannot, put it face down and out of reach, which is the next best thing and still better than the heroic lie that you will simply be strong. Strength is lovely, it is also very fond of getting tired. There's a funny little arrogance in how we treat interruptions too. We act as if each one is a tiny tax the world charges us for being important. In reality, half the time it is just our own environment tapping us on the shoulder like an overexcited usher. Email, Slack, calendar, browser, tiny red badge, tiny red badge, tiny red badge. A machine designed by raccoons. The trouble is that Flow is not offended by difficulty. It is offended by divided permission. A hard task can carry you, a split task cannot. The mind likes a clean enemy. It can wrestle a hard paragraph, a hard spreadsheet, a hard rehearsal. What it cannot do gracefully is wrestle a paragraph while also keeping one eye on a blinking square that may or may not contain social danger. That is why work often produces flow more reliably than play, which sounds backwards until you notice how many playful activities are actually packed with little exits. Work at its best forces a narrower lane. It says, this thing now. Play often says, and also maybe this notification, this group chat, this other possibility, this half plan. Fun apparently can become administrative. So you keep trying to start flow the way you start a playlist. Wrong tool, wrong fantasy. It is not a switch, it is a room. And the room has to stop arguing with itself. A clean room does not mean a perfect one. It means a room with fewer open mouths. The draft version of your day can survive some noise. It cannot survive being constantly invited to reconsider itself. Every extra tab is another little politician in the chamber. Every notification is another person clearing their throat. And there is the uncomfortable center of it, the bit people keep circling without quite touching. You did not miss flow today. Your surroundings had 17 opinions about what you should be doing instead. And flow took the hint. That lands because it is almost rude, and because it is true. The task was there. The possibility was there. The body was there. The problem was the atmosphere you kept making around all of it. Like a room where someone will not stop turning the lights on and off to see if the mood improves. The strange part is that once you stop blocking it, flow does not arrive like a trumpet blast. It slips in while you are already occupied. You notice it late. That is how you know it is real. Not because it feels dramatic, but because 20 minutes passed and the world did not get a vote. So maybe the move is not to schedule a better version of yourself. Maybe it is to make the first 5 minutes less stupid. Fewer exits, fewer tabs, fewer tiny side bets. Give the task enough friction to matter and enough quiet to continue. Let the body catch up. Let the room shut up. And then, when the page is open and the phone is gone and the little badge is no longer pretending to be urgent, there's that odd stillness before the work takes hold, with your hand just hovering over the keyboard, like it has finally remembered what it came for.